Hello, friends. Every idea that changed the world started as that's never going to work. And that is because humans like to box people in and categorize them. And I know that might sound dramatic, but I keep thinking about this. We want to make things make sense so badly. We want a system, we want a category, we want to say this works and this doesn't. And the second something doesn't fit into that, we dismiss it. We can't seem to wrap our heads around it. We call it stupid, too much, never gonna work, unrealistic, even wrong. And I'm like, that's literally how everything starts. But we have this fixation of we need to put labels on everything to make it make sense. Being an introvert, being an extrovert, being a morning person, being a nighttime person, being a coffee person, being a tea person. We put all these labels on people to make sense of them to us. And it's part of it's a relational thing. We want to like, hey, you love coffee, I do too. But other times it's putting this label, but then adding all this meaning behind what that means. People consider me an introvert, but I'm not an introvert in the way that you think I am. I love people, I love talking. I just need a little time to myself to recharge. But that has nothing to do with being shy. But when we put these labels on people, we hear something about them and then we instantly associate all these other things with them. And that is what drives me nuts. And especially any kind of product, service, pretty much any idea in this entire world, the history of the human race, everything started as fringe. And this really hit me when I started to look around at everything we accept as normal now. Every product, every service, every moment, every piece of history. That anything that has shifted how we live, work, and lead at some point was fringe. Someone looked at it and said, that is ridiculous. One of my favorite examples of this is women wearing pants. At one point, it was the most fringe, unbelievable, horrible thing to think about. A woman wearing pants? What do you mean a woman wearing pants? No, 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 no. We can't have that. And as silly as that sounds in today's world, that was just reality. That's what people believed. How could we have such a crazy idea? I mean, someone landing on the moon, it was nuts. But guess what? We did it and we're doing it again. All these ideas that were once nuts actually weren't that nuts, but they started off with people saying they were. That's never going to work. That's stupid, ridiculous. Think about it. Stuff like driverless cars. I mean, that's still a little nuts, but it is actually becoming a reality and there is a need for it. I could even think back to a time when my grandpa used to talk about when the computer first came out. My grandpa was an early adopter of using the computer. He thought this is awesome. He saw the potential, but he also talks about how many people he knew that thought this was a stupid idea. The computer's never going to go anywhere. That's just a new fad. It'll fade out. And how many of those people are regretting when they realize, well, shit, pretty much everything we do now is associated with a computer in some way. It's this idea that if we can't put this new thing, this new idea, the new service, whatever it is, into a box, we can't put a label onto it. It's like, nope, we can't somehow put our mind around it. We try to justify what we can't comprehend with the logic of just like, nope, that's stupid. And I think what's nuts is we do this with so many things and we don't even realize it. And what we're really doing is instead of questioning the system itself, we're dismissing something that doesn't fit into this current system of how we see things. And I think what really is driving this conversation for me is I keep seeing this pattern. I have clients with amazing ideas, real ideas that could really take off. New ways to lead, how to build a business, how to be successful, how to create something different. But instead of trusting that instinct of this idea, they try to make it make sense inside of what already exists. They try to fit it into what business is supposed to look like, how success is supposed to happen. What would make people understand this? And that's when it all loses its power, because it was never meant to fit in there. Just like the computer. It was this nutso idea. It was nowhere to fit it in. But damn, did the computer take off. What's actually happening is we're trying to build something new inside of a structure that was never designed to keep things the same. And when we're trying to do this and it's not working, you often think, I must have a problem. Not the system has a problem. I have a problem. Because that's easier to explain than the system of how the world works. But that's not exactly the reality. What it often comes down to is a structure problem. The structures haven't been built to create this new idea, this new service, this new product. But that is what you're here to do. Humans are not here to consistently always be the same. Follow the person ahead of you, but adapt, change, make it work for you. That is where the success comes from. And what this looks like out in the real world, there is so much, I think, push that things need to be made in America. But there's a lot of difficulties in that. Higher labor cost, more restrictions, and overall it's going to cost more. And so many businesses are like, no, we can't do this. We need to produce overseas. This idea is dead. It's too expensive, not scalable. It doesn't work for our modern society, for how Americans want to consume things. But that's the easy way out. There are companies like American Giant pushing the boundaries and saying, bullshit, I'm going to show you differently. And I love that kind of attitude. I'm definitely one of those that, let me prove you wrong. And that's why I love this company, because they're proving everyone wrong. They're going to be successful because of it, and they're just doing it. They're not listening to those people. Another example is there's this idea some companies are playing with in giving ownership to the employees. Instead of having outside shareholders or the top management having all the power, having one central owner of the company, what if you gave ownership to all the employees? Give them a share of the pie. And this sounds a little nuts because there's a lot more logistics versus just having one owner. How do we make, a company of 200-300 people all be owners? But this trend is growing because it works. And I think it's absolutely brilliant. When the employees actually have a stake into the company, they care more. They're like, oh, if I do my job really well, I'll actually make a little more money because I have the stake in how the company does overall. They show up differently. They're just not working to get a paycheck and go home. They become part of something. And this structural change is so powerful for a company. Sprinkle it down so your employees are going to show up differently. Because when they show up differently, everyone's going to benefit. This power structure might seem about kooky at first, but that's the point. It's always been the point. When someone shows up and does something differently, is no matter how kooky it might sound, that is when change happens and you start the trend. But people aren't okay with being kooky or nuts or, wow, that's never going to work. They don't want to be told that. So they never try in the first place. And that's where things get very interesting for me, because a lot of people might look at those examples and, wow, those are cool ideas. But they're actually missing what made those ideas work, because those weren't just ideas to make a change in a business, do business differently. What it really was a willingness to build a structure that matched their idea. They're willing to go outside of this box and create something new because they deep down knew they wanted to do it. And I kept seeing people skip that part, that willingness. They have something different, but they try to run it through the same system, the same expectations, the same timelines, the same pressure. And then it starts feeling heavy. And of course it does. You're asking for something new to survive in something that was never built for it. And this is where I think desire actually matters. Not in a fluffy way, but in a tangible way. Because when you get stuck in that spiral of you have this amazing idea, but how and this and you start overthinking it, the energy dies. Everything starts to feel hard, heavy, and it's just not working. And you start to turn it all inward. You start to question, what's wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? Why isn't this working? You stop seeing the possibility of this amazing idea you had, and you start to box yourself in. And that's the part no one talks about. You can't have these new ideas, these new innovative ideas that are changing the world, if you're stuck inside old ideas of how things should be, how things are supposed to be. I deeply believe if a desire is put into you, you're made to fulfill it. You are capable of fulfilling it. You wouldn't have a desire inside of you if you weren't capable of fulfilling that desire. So I want you to think about this the next time you're stuck. You're not stuck because your ideas are too out there. You're stuck because you don't actually trust them yet. You don't have that willingness to take the leap and trust that everything is going to happen the way it's supposed to be. That desire, that little thing inside of you that's screaming, yes, I want to do this so badly. Instead of trusting it, you dim it. You keep adjusting the idea until it makes sense to other people. You're softening them. You're trying to figure it out and make it right instead of just building the damn thing and going for it. Every idea started as some fringe crazy thing. Again, women wearing pants? Like, really? How is that so unacceptable? And for the time, it was the norm. Women didn't wear pants. That's outrageous. But someone pushed through with the idea. It caught on. And now it's just, I don't even think about it. I wear pants most days and it's not a big deal. Maybe that thing inside of you that you're trying to figure out how to make it work inside the current system, maybe it's not about trying to fit it into the current structure, but it's about trusting it enough to let it be different. Everything you're looking at right now, everything that works, was once something people didn't believe in. Nothing about you is too much. You're just not meant to build it the way it's always been done. You're here to be a trailblazer. Until next time, keep rebelling, keep rising.